Good morning from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We are the host of the G20 Summit this year. Yesterday, the G20 Leaders Summit concluded, and leaders have departed, including President Biden and South Africa President Ramaphosa, as well as other leaders have already departed, returning home or to other events. Yesterday event, the second day, it was a 2-day event for the G20 Leaders Summit. Began on Monday, and yesterday also was a pack event, pack activities. The U.S. agenda, as we were told by senior administration officials earlier yesterday morning during press briefing, that the U.S. will continue to push for something as President Biden have worked on in the last 3.5 years, engaging the international community on this alliance to build a coalition around addressing significant issues that affect developing countries, that affect the global south as a whole. As we reported on Monday, that there was a new launch. President Biden joined President of Brazil, Lula da Silva, to launch the Global Alliance to fight hunger and poverty, a significant initiative to address the hunger around the world, and as well as poverty. As we know, we've reported on this, that the U.S. has made significant investment contribution to food security, to increasing food security across the world, across Africa. There have been, just as recent as in October, when the Millennium Challenge Corporation CEO, Madam Alice Albright, traveled to Zambia, where she announced over $400 million contribution investments in agriculture, in climate resilience agriculture, as well as part of that fund we also go to boosting capital access for smallholder farmers, especially for women. There have been, that's just to name recent investment that the U.S. governments have continued to make to Africa as well as other developing countries. We remember a year or 2 years ago, there was another announcement during the UN General Assembly towards boosting food security. So this partnership through the G20 Alliance that we address, that is a major change, a game changer to bring this nation together to 20 major global economic, 20 of the top major global economic, to bring them together to work. They do have different view, but to work together on this coalition to address global hunger and reduce poverty. As we reported, this is something that during the Biden-Harris administration, the Biden presidency, that from day one, part of the American Rescue Plan was to address hunger and poverty, and through that the administration provided a fund to families with young children, as we know, but that fund, when it expired, it was not renewed by Congress. The president continued, saw the significant reduction of childhood poverty across America, and so it continued that, moving to the global platform to help bring about a significant change. That we know that this also will play into the agenda, is part of the agenda that sort of underscore the agenda of addressing climate change, climate crisis, the devastation that it has brought. We've seen significant impact from droughts to flood that have affected farmers significantly. So that initiative was launched on Monday, the first day of the Leaders Summit. Yesterday, the focus was on clean energy transition. Another initiative that President Biden has focused on through the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act across America, where investments were made in clean energy in disadvantaged communities that have seen significant, as well as boosting job creation across the country. So moving into the global platform, we announced this earlier this year when the World Bank announced the 300 mission to boost electricity access to millions of people. Billions of people are in the global south, in Africa, to bring, because without electricity, very nothing can really be done. So there's been a huge focus on this, and yesterday the U.S. announced significant other investment. They launched the Clean Energy Transition Partnership with President Lula da Silva. Yesterday, President Biden joined in launching that program. Another major investment that was announced yesterday is $325 million contribution to the Clean Technology Fund at the World Bank. And again, this will support fund capital to support country-driven energy transformation through the multilateral financial institution, of course, through the World Bank, through the African Development Bank, as well as through the Inter-American Development Bank and other multilateral banks around the world. So this is just part of the announcement that were made yesterday at the event yesterday. I had a chance to participate, to speak with the incoming G20 presidency, which will be hosted on the African continent, will be hosted by South Africa next year in 2025. And they are already in preparation. Is a significant event for South Africa as well as for the African continent. And I asked President Ramaphosa how the diaspora, the African diaspora, can help support the efforts in preparation to make this event significant. For that, you guys will have already seen that that whole press conference, and he told me that they will be reaching out in various ways to the community, to the diaspora in the US and around the world, as well as through the SADC, the Southern African Development Community, to work together to make that event, the G20 South Africa presidency, a success. I also asked him regarding the conversation that he had with President Biden. I know they met very briefly, and he told me that their discussion focused on the discussion that they had when President Ramaphosa visited the U.S. was at the White House, met with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris 2 years ago at the White House, and they have continued to have conversation on the phone, and that their conversation at this G20 resolve around that. But one thing that I said, it was very happy to work with the president on during this summit is the launch to have a clear statement on the G20, President Biden, President Ramaphosa, and President Lula da Silva work together on addressing on a clear statement that promotes workers' rights. As we know that President Biden 2 years ago also worked with the International Labour Organization Director General to launch a program that we address labor's rights around the world. We interviewed the Director General, the ILO Director General, several years ago during it was in December 2022 during the U.S. African Leaders Summit on how it's working to ensure workers' rights on the African continent are protected. We know South Africa has a huge union population as well as the U.S. So it was a big, the President Ramaphosa said it was very happy and quote unquote, he said it's sealing a good relationship between the U.S. and South Africa, as well as between him and President Biden, as President Biden retire from American presidency in January. So you guys can see behind me, I mean, this city is beyond amazing. And we had a chance to speak to two Brazilians on their thoughts about this summit taking place in their country, in their city in Rio de Janeiro. Is a beautiful city surrounded by nature, and you can see the mountain just behind me. Waking up to this every day or just during the day, on Sunday when we arrived here, some of the mountains were very active. And they said that's something, it was just a treat for the visitor, that it does not happen very often. So we were very glad to be able to see that. I wasn't able to capture it, but I saw it when I arrived here. It's a beautiful city, and it just reminds us of what is important, of why we need to protect protect our planet. As we know, President Biden traveled to the Amazon, the first president to do so, visit the Amazon, and he announced significant investment for biodiversity as well as for addressing some of the climate crisis that we are seeing in the Amazon, the impact of climate crisis, as well as I said, significant to protect the biodiversity in the Amazon rainforest. So this a lot happened, and we've been putting out reports. Yesterday we had some technical, I won't say a little, but major technical difficulty with connection, so we were not able to upload as I promised that we will be doing more live updates, but due to our movement all around, we were not staying in one place. We were moving from meetings to meetings, and also trying to get a chance to talk to leaders while they were attending this event. So those reports, all of our reports from these 2 days event, you will be seeing that. I also had a chance to talk to the special advisor to President Lula da Silva, the chief special advisor for international affairs. I spoke with him regarding the historic significance of hosting these events in his country, and he said as they look back on the G20 Brazil presidency, that one of the landmark legacy for them is launching the G20 social. And even when I spoke with Brazilians that I saw on the street, and they said they were very happy that bringing the civil society, that it's good for leaders to have this discussion, but to engage the civil society at the table, that's a major game changer, that we're making the alliance more inclusive and opening it more for the civil society and also for the younger generation. As we've seen, there have been a lot of protest in Africa as well as in other countries by youth demanding more engagement, and youth are also engaged in addressing the climate crisis that we're seeing around the world. All of those reports, you will be seeing it. Just to wrap this up, the U.S. achievements are this: as much as there is report that there is a diminished significant because of the incoming because of the result of the U.S. November 5th election, that this will be less of an important or historic event for the U.S. But what the President Biden and his administration, the Biden-Harris administration, have achieved under this Biden presidency, in uniting the global community that have diverse view and bringing them together to work on critical issues, fighting hunger, addressing climate crisis, addressing workers' rights, just to name a few. In uniting and addressing, bringing more significant pandemic fund, also investment to address any crisis, any health crisis that are popping up across the world. At the end of the day, when we look at the Biden presidency on a foreign affair, regarding the foreign affair legacy, there is historic setting. As one Brazilian guy told me, that he very much appreciates what President Biden has done on the global stage, his kindness, bringing calm to the community, to the global stage, as well as, and they just quotes, you said, the U.S. has set a standard as that the U.S. is the country to look up to. So the president came into office saying, he was asked as when he went to the G7 Summit in London, when he said America is back, and people said, for how long? Regardless of what the new administration might have done, this past 4 years, from what I'm hearing from people, just regular people that I talk to in Brazil, as well as from leaders, they very much appreciate what this U.S. president has done that came into office at a very, very important, very critical time during the pandemic, and was able to rally the international community together to work together to address this issue, and as well as continue to build coalition and partnership in every way for people, for leaders to work together on addressing issues that affect everyone around the world. So this concludes. You will be seeing more all of the report from here, whether later on today or when we get back to Washington DC. It's been an honor for us to cover this event. And again, I want to say thank you to all of our sponsors, all of our supporters, all of our audience, our readers as well, that continue to support us, that make this trip possible for us to participate, to be here, to report for you guys. So a huge thank you to everyone that continue to support us. Again, you can subscribe if you have not subscribed. It's very early in the morning, but again, I wanted to say thank you. It's been the honor to be able to do this, to report from all of these events and bring you report for our audience in Africa as well as from our audience around the world to see a different view than what you usually get, a different report of how things, the leaders are making decisions that will affect all of our life. So this concludes my report from Rio de Janeiro for the G20 Brazil Summit. Soon we will be heading back to Washington, D.C., and I hope to see you with our regular news wrap and updates. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Kemi Oshukoya. I see you soon.